Okay, what did I say about this already? About the pH curve. I said that it's very important. Down here is what's important, and it's important because that's where the work is put in. The reason I want a refrigeration system is so that it pulls the heat out of the room. That's all I bought it for. So this is a really important part. And I'm looking at this system as it goes from 0.4 to 0.1 as we evaporate and bring in heat from the room. And then I talked about how this is a really important part here, and we govern this by the suction line in the refrigeration system. And the evaporator has to be sized such that suction line is going to bring you into pressure below ambient. It's going to bring it into a vacuum so that you're up here in superheated steam. You're up here in superheated steam so that you know that you are bringing a gas into the compressor so that you're not compressing any liquid. All right, so those are important elements so far. It's also important to know that this process across an evaporator and across a condenser is called an isobaric process. Iso means one, baric means pressure. So it's a single pressure process, an isobaric process across those, which means we have a pressure here and a pressure here. And this is the low pressure, and this is the high pressure. And if our system doesn't have any losses, we should have low pressure coming out of the expansion valve, the same low pressure going into the compressor. The high pressure, of course, comes out of the compressor because its job was to compress. And then the same pressure along as the fluid goes through the condenser, because as it loses heat through the condenser, as that heat comes out and the fluid condenses and becomes cooler, there's no volume change. And if there's no volume change and it's allowed to lose that temperature, then it's going to stay at that same pressure as long as the volume stayed the same as well. So those are a couple of notes of significance, because if you are testing one of these systems, you're going to do your testing at 0.4, 1, 2, and 3, and you won't have pressure at every one of them. So you might have 2 of those pressures, and you have to assume that the other one will be along that same pressure line. Okay, as also to note here on the pressure enthalpy curve is the compression. So the purpose for compressing is that we are heating up that fluid. The reason we do it is to go from a warm fluid to a hot fluid. The reason we want a hot fluid is to have all this heat up here to dissipate, to get rid of. I didn't buy this system to heat anything up, though. Perhaps I could have some efficiencies if I do heat up something with this system, but often we don't. We're just getting there now. I bought this system so that I can remove heat, but in order to remove that heat, I need a way in the system to then dispense the heat so that I can continuously do the same cycle. That's the only reason I put lots of money into compressing. I put lots of money into compressing because as I compress, I am changing the volume. The volume out is going to be much, much, much smaller than the volume in. That's going to pressurize that volume because I'm not letting any more in. I'm taking the same fluid and I'm making it small. And when I make it small, I put some stress on it and it increases that pressure. Now, as that pressure increases, it gets a little bit excited. And as it gets excited, it gathers more energy. So energy enthalpy, which is our measurement of energy, enthalpy increases. It goes from here to here. Enthalpy increases, but it's not for free. You paid electrical energy in order to put that enthalpy in by compressing things. So you have paid electrical energy. You made a volume, you captured some fluid, you made that volume a lot smaller. It heated it up. It added enthalpy to that system by pressurizing it. So we went from a low pressure, this low pressure line, P low, all the way up to this high pressure line, P high. low pressure to high. But again, I didn't buy this system to change pressure. I have to change pressure in order to get a higher temperature. We have to remember that part. Now I'm at this point. I have a really, really hot liquid. All I do is this condenser actually looks like this, and it sits through, some ambient space. Don't put it back inside the house that I've tried to take temperature from. Don't put it back inside the unit. Put it somewhere else. Preferably put it somewhere that needs heat, because it's so hot in those lines that it's going to dissipate all that heat out to the ambient temperature. That's an isobaric process. As I said, it's constant pressure, and that's going to deheat this superheated steam. And it's going to no longer be hot temperature. It's going to be a warm temperature. But that warm temperature, it's too hot to go and gather heat. It's still too hot because it's hotter than the space I want to cool, because now I'm talking about the space is, say, the space inside a refrigerator, right? And that's too cold still. So I'm way up here with temperature, and I want to be way down here with temperature. So what we do is we let out that fluid really, really quickly. And when we let out a fluid really quickly and we increase its volume quickly, it cools that. Now, it doesn't take any energy to cool it. So the cost of this is equal to 0. It doesn't cost anything to expand. It costs a lot to compress, but it doesn't cost anything to expand. All you have to do is give it an orifice to expand out of, and it's going to gun out of that orifice. It's going to take up the volume that it wants to, because it's been compressed and it had too much energy. So it's going to now expand. It's not going to change its enthalpy at all. But if you let it change to a low pressure, if you keep the volume the same, then it will go to a low temperature. How do we know that? Ideal gas law. Ideal gas law, PV equals nRT, or if you want, it is pressure is directly proportional. Oh, pressure and volume are directly proportional to temperature. So if you hold the volume constant, if you hold the, what am I holding constant here? I am reducing, if I increase the volume a lot, I can put pressure under temperature here. If I increase the volume a lot, then I'm also going to be decreasing that pressure, and I'm going to be decreasing that temperature, which will get us all the way down here. Isenthalpic, which means it doesn't change enthalpy, expansion into low pressure. And now it is cold, 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 cold. And I have these cold lines sitting in a house or a refrigerator or whatever you want to cool, and cold, cold lines in an environment that is less cold than it is just going to, from the first law of thermodynamics, take up that heat, which is what I have paid for to do here.